July 16th, 2024, to order at 7 p.m. Brianna, please call the roll.
Counselor Gilson,
Here.
Counselor Lacoste,
Here.
Counselor Isa,
Here.
Mayor Lockenbrough,
Here.
Counselor Flores,
Here.
Counselor Strauss, Counselor Romer.
Here. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to thank each of you who took time to attend tonight. There's nobody physically here. Any guests who are physically present need to fill out a meeting sign-in sheet near the door. We're running a hybrid meeting again tonight to allow those who wish to attend remotely to do so. We cut down background noise and feedback. Remote attendees should mute themselves while not speaking. Staff members and guests on the agenda will need to unmute themselves to give reports to council. And audience members may unmute themselves to speak during the public hearings and comment period. So the first item on the agenda is the public hearing for proposed educational livestock ordinance. Any citizen who wishes to speak during the public hearing must limit their testimony to 3 minutes. Also capping the total time for the public hearing at 40 minutes. If you're attending remotely and you want to testify, please raise your hand in Zoom or state in the comments section in Zoom you wish to testify. In order to ensure as much time as possible during the time that time is reserved for citizens to speak, council will not answer questions or engage with those providing testimony. If you go over 3 minutes, you'll be asked to stop speaking. Testimony received will be used by council in coming decisions on the proposal. Audience demonstrations, personal attacks, and other disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. We as council are here to listen to testimony and come to a best possible decision. Has there been any sent in? No. Okay. First item on the agenda is public hearing for the proposed ordinance 2024-447. An ordinance amending the Halsey Municipal Code, Chapter 10.10, Livestock and Poultry. The public hearing on the matter of proposed ordinance 2024-447 is called to order at 7:05 on July 16th, 2024. Purpose of this hearing is to receive public testimony regarding the proposed ordinance that would amend the Halsey Development Code to allow lambs and goat kids for youth education such as 4-H and FFA. Does any member of the city council wish to announce an actual or potential conflict of interest as defined by Oregon Revised Statute Section 244?
I do, potential, now that we're back to 4-H. My boy is not of age, but hopefully will do 4-H one day, but as of right now, it's not. Yeah, I still intend to vote and all that.
Okay.
So I have a potential conflict of interest. My kids are involved in 4-H now.
Okay. Thank you. Does any member of the audience wish to make or challenge any council member's impartiality or ability to participate in this decision? Is there anybody on the line that's commenting? There's nobody in the audience physically, and we have not received any written correspondence on the matter. We're now at the point in the hearing where council will hear any testimony. Seeing how there's nobody here or online. Does any member of the council have any questions regarding clarification of any potential testimony at this point? As there's been none. There's no further questions. I'll close the public meeting on proposed ordinance. This hearing is closed at 7:07 p.m. That was amazing.
Thought provoking.
It was. So next item on the agenda is council minutes. Council's agenda work session minutes from May 28th, 2024, and council minutes from June 11th, 2024. Council can choose to vote on them together or vote on them separately. Entertain a motion.
I move the governing body of City of Halsey approve the May 28 work session minutes and the June 11 City Council minutes as submitted.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So next item on the agenda is agenda adjustments. Are there any adjustments this evening?
We do have a couple adjustments. Since the packets first went out, we now have our reports from law enforcement for the contract. And then we also have our financial statements. And so, when we get to financial statements portion of the agenda, we have few enough agenda items tonight that we will actually take for council to have the opportunity to actually review financial statements.
So, has everybody read this so far? You want some few minutes? So the next item on the agenda is the financial statement.
Yes, so now is a good time, and you don't have to feel like you're rushed,
Right, take your time.
and take your time. For me, it's business as usual. The one notable expense that is in here that I would point out is we do have a $25 return check fee. Remember when, I guess it was a couple months ago, I was doing a transfer. I made an error, worked with our bank and got it corrected right away. When we were working with them, they were like, we will make sure that nothing gets bounced back, because we could see what was happening and it just takes like a business day for banking to catch up, right? Well, one slipped through, but one of the things that our banker named Kathy, who's fantastic, by the way, said, she goes, if anything happens, you tell me. So when all the dust settled, we did end up getting one fee from our lab agency, which we also right in that account immediately, like same day. And so I reached out to our bank and they refunded us. So that, so we are all flush. It is unfortunate and embarrassing that I had to go through that, but a learning curve, I guess, within the position. So that is something that's usual.
Kathy's a friend of mine. She's awesome.
Oh, she was impressed. I said a lot of nice things to her.
Yeah, we've been friends for a while.
When y'all make charges, do y'all have to like go in and submit paperwork and like when y'all purchase things for the city, you know, like submit a receipt and like an explanation and like you know, like a lot of times business card,
Or.
like a business card type thing.
So we have a form that we use, it's an Excel sheet in-house, and we categorize all of the credit card things. We have to have receipts for all of them. And then we use that to allocate them to the correct fund and to sort of explain the.
The times the 670, was that like public notices?
Yeah, and that actually constitutes several public notices, and so it's for, notice of budget meeting, notice of budget hearing, notice of the budget hearing, we have to do our whole budget summary document, and that's really big. It's not, it's like a one pager, but
But
it's
so,
kind of like the thing that you all get when you're approving the budget, but, you know, with less space, so it's crammed in.
right,
So that takes up a lot of space. We also did our, you know, we have to do all of our public hearings for seizure, and all those things.
Right.
We end up having to spend
right.
a fair amount. I think we also might have posted our water outage, our planned water outage for the meter
Mhm.
in the times as well.
Marvelous. Oh, I guess, yeah, I would have turned them. I would have probably seen that. Is Fran-Base coming tonight?
Please can't make it.
No.
Let us know this morning. He was gonna try to get another deputy to come, but he knows it's just not. on.
Yeah.
Fires and stuff, they're,
Oh,
Oh, no kidding.
they're separate. That's,
well, one local today, so,
Mm.
yeah.
Did send us a note, so I'll pull it up while you all are reading so that I can.
Um,
Summarize.
Burnsville Road and, Sandridge.
Oh, gee.
Yeah. It was a, field fire and they got it out fairly soon, but I do know from Pulse Point, Brownsville, Sweet Home, Lebanon and Halsey were all there.
That's just a map of fires.
This is, yeah, it's Watch Duty app. It's really cool, actually. Like, it's like on that one, that was the one that happened last night. And it wasn't super updated. Usually they update, but it tells you all the information on it. You can see, you know, how many acres. Right now, with the red, that's the red flag warning. That's
Ooh.
the state of Oregon. Just about the whole entire state is in a red flag warning. You can see like the different sizes. I have,
Folks need a few more minutes for
Yeah.
the financials.
it's really cool. A few years ago when we had it really bad. I
just that long pause on the recording.
Mm,
You have to have something on there once in a while.
There was one today.
Once people are viewing a recording, there's this thing called fast forward.
Yeah.
Sandridge Road. Oh, I said, did I say Sandridge? Sandridge and Brownsville Road. I didn't even say acres on it, so I mean, they got it out quick, but still, like between that one there and then the one in Eugene last night. Way too close. Maybe. How? Maybe. Oops, I forgot it at home. Did you find it? Hmm? Details. Right, they're at West Albany. Tomorrow we have double header at Regent. Hmm? Staten. Playing Eugene today at the Challengers. With Eugene is like 62 games in 30 days. Yeah, it's a crazy schedule. Month and a half, so 6 weeks, so.
Close.
I'm good.
Yeah. Good to go.
Good, yeah.
Jerry? You good to go? Yep. You're good?
Mhm.
Okay, awesome. So, any questions, comments, discussion?
I had one, I think it was like a long, it just says long distance. We get charged for long distance calls.
Yes, and so that is something that we are gonna turn off because we've switched to Barcom and so we should not have to pay for that.
Right.
And so that should be the final bill because we did reach out. We actually-
Yeah, I just haven't seen that in a while.
I was saying, is there such thing anymore?
I know,
Yeah.
I was very concerned. And I was also surprised with the church.
Mhm.
So that should cease to exist.
When did we switch to Barcom?
Oh, we switched to Vercom a few months ago, and so I actually, when I first started here, didn't realize that we did not need long distance anymore.
Right.
Amber brought it to my attention when we were paying a bill. And I was like, oh, fascinating, let's get that shut off. And then I think we missed it for a month, and then it was like, we got the next bill and we remembered, hey, let's get that shut off.
Right.
Varcom took over RTI, correct?
Correct.
Yes, Vercom took over RTI.
Yeah.
We have really enjoyed those phones, by the way. Prior to my onboarding, what I had heard was that we didn't have caller ID. We didn't have a bunch of the features that we have now, and that has been really,
Mhm.
yeah.
So we went to Varcom because kind of by default. Or did
Yes
we-
and
did we
no.
actually
They
vote
were,
on
they were
going to
really the
Varcom?
best. Say again?
Did we actually vote to go to Varcom? Rather than Alaric?
We did. I don't know if we did.
So I don't know that
They
it
don't,
ever came up.
they don't, Alarica didn't have as much services as Varcom did.
Hmm.
It was sort of it's the best business decision. And so city administrators said, we needed to do this.
And Amber did the research, and I believe that she did price comparisons.
Right.
To find a cost savings for the city, which.
It was considerable.
AT&T for with the long distance and all the other things was the cost savings for the city.
Yeah.
And then also the phones are better. So like now we have the ability to like conference call, and again, the caller ID is fantastic.
Mhm.
It might seem like a small thing, but it has been very helpful.
Yeah. It's been a big savings
Mhm.
overall.
Well, my concern is when Varcom went around pitching, changing things over, I went for it initially.
Mhm.
But I've always been pretty happy with Alarica's service, and I'm not happy with what the sales of Varcom said with his answer. We'll have somebody get back to you in 24 hours.
Okay, well, let's chat about that because Eric would be very interested in hearing that. The owner.
Was that for a service request, like if you
Yes, to get
needed?
them to switch over to Varcom. And I said, one of the things I really enjoy a lot about Alarica, I've always had really good service.
Yeah.
There's always somebody there 24/7. So he
Yeah,
said, oh yeah, we have somebody taking calls and have somebody get back to you in 24 hours. That's not good enough for me.
I know that for our purpose here, we have a local contact and we've needed service there same day.
Yeah.
I can't say how things are for the non-commercial accounts. I don't know, but I can only speak to our experience.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Oh, yeah. I move that the governing body of the city of Halsey approve the June 2024 financial reports and journal entries as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. And so the next would be on the sheriff's report.
Yes, and I have some notes that we received from Sergeant Brandby's. He said things to note for this month is that they watched the stop signs and intersections a lot more closely this past month. Which is the reason that there's an increase in citations related to registration. So cars stopping at intersections gives them more time to look at registration and run license plate numbers, and so as a result, we see that influx. They also arrested a male for firing a gun within city limits back first of June, which we've all heard about, and that's what he says. I'm sure everybody's aware by now. And then the last they heard, the property owner had an eviction process in the works. As far as we know on the city side, that the person who was in there is gone, and there's a new tenant in that place. And then Diamond K had more unsecured items stolen. Which Steve says will continue until they can get control of their inventory or security.
Yeah.
So they're, I did speak to some of Diamond K's staff, and they did mention that what they're having is people that kind of come in the night, you know, especially here on the, you know, this corner over here, and they're getting into stuff that's less secured in some of their various locations around town.
The thing I was gonna say thank you for to them was you noticed all the different stops at the intersections and
Right.
stuff. I love that.
Mhm.
I love that. A lot of people were getting caught, but
Hmm.
sounds, yeah.
Seems like this year has been more proactive with the sheriff's department than
Mhm.
in past years.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that continue.
Yes, I will also say that this has been more recent developments, but the city's been working on some ordinance enforcement. And they've been responsive to things like abandoned vehicles and stuff like that. And sometimes we don't even have to reach out to them. They try to let us leave there and let them know that we'd like to see action, but sometimes they're like, this has just been here and it's went down and lost. And they'll just sort of let us know that they've taken action on something like that.
Okay.
Is there any way we can get a little quicker response on some of these calls? We had a guy selling solar panels, parked in the same place 5 days, all day long. And he did not have a permit because he came to our door. My wife asked him about his permit. He said, no, my boss has it.
They
Oh, I
always
knew
say,
that. Yeah, he and I chatted and boss and I chatted. And he said, we have a permit. I said, I guarantee you, you do not.
That's what my wife told him,
Yeah. So-
but he kept parking there.
Yeah, so if you have something like that, let City Hall know.
Well, I called and as far as I know, police never showed up because he parked there for 2 or 3 more days after that.
Did you call and talk to the office staff here? Okay.
I mean, I realize that that's not an emergency, so if the police are tied up somewhere.
Right.
you know,
Just sucks
I
there.
understand that, but 2 or 3 more days, nothing's done. I'm not very happy about that.
they're so incredibly short-staffed. It's.
Right, they're having a hard time filling staff that
I mean,
Beside the
still,
point.
yeah.
if you have that happen again. If they have any paraphernalia. Like a piece of paper or a flyer, have them write their name and phone number and the boss's name and phone number on it. And get it to me. I will get it handled.
Well, I took down the license number, which was a Utah plate,
Hmm,
and it was the same car.
I know,
Monday
he
through
came to my
Friday.
house too.
Write that down too, vehicle description, all that stuff. Get a hold of the sheriff's department and if they don't need anything, give me a holler and I'll get it handled.
sometimes also when we get, I actually didn't realize that you had called about solicitors in town, I'm sorry, I missed that. But I was-
Meeting. It was the day you had, like, I guess you were out of town 2 or 3 days or something.
Oh, okay, yeah, I went to Mount Hood. For the conference, they gave them to notice, but sometimes when we get, sometimes our town is actually really with some solicitors because people always get calls when we get unpermitted solicitors in town, and we've gone out there and talked to them before. And they're like, hey, in our city car, and sometimes that scares me.
When they were on the west side, they came to my house. We chatted, like, texted out and asked, nope, thought so. Found them again, chatted with them. Gotta go. They probably went over to your side of the city and I'd like to apologize.
Like I said, I realize it's not an emergency and nobody's getting hurt, but it just kind of galls me that people come into a small town and they can ignore their ordinances and
Right.
I would rather have a reputation where you better have a permit before you go dealing in Halsey, because they'll nail you.
Does anybody ever come in and ask for a permit?
Very rarely.
Oh, that's funny. You gotta call and report them.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to wear like a badge, don't they? Yeah, so it'd be pretty obvious if they had one.
We issue a little badge that basically says they have a permit and they have to have it on.
Oh, okay. Well, if there's nothing else, we'll move on to the non-existent city comments or citizen comments. There's nobody here and nobody online.
I approve it. We're done.
Next is reports to council. We'll start off with the city administrator report.
All right, so Highway 99 project, as all of you I'm sure have seen, it's moving south on the western lanes. We did have a little issue with the road closures. We were not notified, and so I contacted our ODOT contact that same day, and we did get acknowledgement of their oversight, and they were very responsive because the signage that was initially existed was not sufficient. I went and drove out of here and went up to power line and over to see what our signage looked like coming in. And when they first closed it, there was no signage at power line. There was not any signage until you actually reached O Street where the barricades were, and then a small sign that said detour. And so we actually had semi trucks.
I was gonna say, we can't have that.
So I did get a hold of ODOT and they were extremely responsive. They turned around and they put up signs. If not the same day, by the next morning, and they put them all the way down. So they did make improvements. They can't detour people on roads that they don't own without an agreement. So that's why you're not seeing signs that say detour to power line or detour, because that's a county road. And so what they can say is you'll use alternate routes. We are obliged to use similar language because we also don't own power line. But that made a really big difference. A semi truck has nowhere to turn once they're that far.
Right.
And so their only option is to go down Third Street at that point, and that's not built for that. So it will damage our roads. It's not good. And then also for those drivers, that's gotta be stressful because then they get to the end, and if there's any buses or anything parked by the school, they might not make that corner. So I have not received more complaints about semis going through residential streets. I think that change hopefully made an impact. Actually, you were over there, Councilor Romer. Have you seen many semi trucks, and you work during the day? Have you seen many semi trucks going down Third?
I don't see anything. I'm never home.
Okay. So we have not seen a lot of complaints about that. I will have to check in with Councilor Strauss, because I know that she is over there as well. The O Street closure and J Street, we were hopeful that those would be finished by the end of this month. If you've seen the road, I don't think that that's the timeline.
I have seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that's the timeline. I did have a meeting with them on Thursday to discuss project updates. And that timeline has been kicked out probably another month from the point of our meeting last week. Not a big surprise. They are still on track to be done in fall. So the component where they're tying in the railroad is the only component that they're still working to coordinate. But the main section, our town, from the intersection to south of O Street, we are going to see a complete road with landscaping, with all those things. So they are on track for that. That is good news. And the railroad thing is also coming. It's just that I don't have as many updates about that time yet because we're coordinating multiple agencies in order to achieve that. And we know how that goes.
And the lawyers between the two agencies have gotten out of their own way, so they can make up some progress.
And I have heard council say repeatedly, hey, you guys are doing a great job and everything, but I still think this whole project is taking entirely too long.
Everybody in this town is ready for it to be done.
You know, we're always like, why can't they work longer hours?
Right.
They take, what was the week of 4th of July? They were off that whole week.
And they have, I mean, out on the freeway, they have the lights out there and they're working, you know, I mean, I realize it's a different situation, but yeah, 2 years is a really long time.
Didn't they originally project that as 2 years though?
And it was the original
It was a 2-year
discussion,
project.
the original discussion in Salem was 2.5 years. And then it became 2 years, and they've not budged from that. So I
Well, when the
think they're
engineer
getting,
was here, she said they did hit some hiccups that kind of stretched it a little past the
Yeah.
2 years, but not a lot.
Yeah, and a lot of that was
Normal.
the railroad and the state of Oregon Tort Reforms Division, their attorneys doing whatever attorneys do.
Mhm.
And that always takes forever because they have billable hours they have to accrue. But that part's all done, so now it's just the nuts and the bolts, coordinating for the train, all that stuff. We did have some issues with moisture putting down asphalt. That was a major problem for them.
The weather changed before they had expected it.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
They're not happy either.
yeah.
Kids are going like this on the corner.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah.
Oh, okay then.
Parks project. Finally. We have our permit to remove the trees
Yay.
from the park.
Do we have somebody?
That was a
do
tough
it?
step for us, however, we have to do work in the right of way, and so now the next hurdle is that ODOT is currently actively working in that portion. And we need to be kind of where they're at, and so I don't anticipate trying to schedule anything for tree removal until they've kind of moved out of there a little bit, so their anticipated time in that area doing what they're doing is about another month. And so, yes, I mean, they're just, we have to occupy the same space, and so that's a bit of a barrier, and it's their right way, so we have to wait our turn.
Do we have somebody scheduled to?
So we've already received quotes, but we don't have a schedule because we don't know when we're actually going to. We have received bids from 3 different contractors, so
Mhm.
we're ready to make a selection and get on somebody's calendar for that. I am in the process of writing our request for bids for other components of the project. So our playground, we have to do a request for bid process. The pathway has to be a competitive bid process because of the price. So that's gonna have to actually be one that we're like post to online and that we'll have to do a competitive bid.
How much are the trees gonna cost to get removed?
We anticipate the trees are going to be within our budget of $11,000, which is what we requested in our grant.
How many trees is that?
What's that?
How many trees are getting removed?
Let's see, it's like 7 trees.
Oh, okay.
One of the reasons we're able to keep the cost down is actually because our guys are gonna be helping with debris removal. So it's actually a really big job for them. I actually asked Andy, if we should do a work party, and he goes, part of me wants you guys just out of the way for safety. I don't know, after the week that those guys have had, maybe he'll feel different, we'll revisit. And so that's the next step for Parks project. I still anticipate a timeline in which we will have new park stuff before winter. Before the rain, and I will keep those updates coming. Because we were talking about parks, I have an add-on that wasn't included in this, that is a new development.
So,
I got outreach from Right Tree Services, yesterday, was it?
they're in town today.
Tuesday, it's been a long week.
They're over at our house today.
And so there's a tree, it looks like multiple trees.
Yeah.
I just sent it to the group text, which, you're kidding. So I will just show you on my phone.
When I got home, I ran into Jeremy and he seemed very confused of why I didn't know anything. It all makes sense now.
Mayor will show you. Okay, so this is a redwood tree. When you actually look inside, it looks like we have a root ball from a redwood, and then we have like all these different trunks that come out. It's kind of cool. But this tree, the second picture you can see, has already been topped. It is not majestic, it is not, they're going to have to trim it again because it is in the power lines.
Right.
I don't know what it's gonna look like if we trim it.
Yeah.
They would like to remove it. I like the buffer that it provides from O Street. We will get credit, at least $1,000 in nursery credits that we can buy other plants with if we allow them to remove it. We could select things that are more power line friendly to go there to create that same buffer, perhaps, native things that are more like shrubs that get tall.
Sure.
Or smaller trees. And they will do obviously all of the removal, they'll chip the brush, they'll chip all of it if we want them to. They'll grind the stumps. If we want to keep the wood, it is recommended. we can also do that. We can see if there's a market for it, whatever we wanna do. So I didn't want to commit to removing more trees at the park without a consensus from council. So how do folks feel
So
about
they-
getting rid of those
Is
trees?
this something they're just wanting to do and they're gonna not charge us or?
Yes, this is their power lines. They have tree guys.
Okay.
You get $1,000 to replace the trees.
Okay. Just wanna make sure it wasn't
So there's
right tree
no
service
cost to us.
randomly.
It's just in one of those situations where
Sure.
they have a tree that they consider to be a nuisance, that they're constantly
Mm-hmm.
getting from out the power lines. Again, it's kind of cool. It has already been talked. It does currently create buffer. We are losing a lot of other trees at the park this year, and we are gonna have to figure out a plan for some hedges or something on that side,
Sure.
inside our home. Right away.
Right.
But we're making so many other changes and taking out the other trees that now would be a time to do it.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
Yeah.
starting fresh.
I didn't feel comfortable making that decision without council
Sure.
consensus, and I knew this meeting was following day, so it felt like a good opportunity.
Right.
How does council feel about those trees?
Take them out.
Go for
That's
it.
fine.
Get it done.
I'm okay with it as well.
To take them out? Okay,
They're just gonna keep cutting them.
I saw him around quite a bit. Was he doing a survey of the whole town?
Mhm.
yeah, I was looking for, they've probably been contracted to do, tree work in the town to get trees out of power lines, and so.
He has a-
I'm sure he's
Cause
contacting.
there's one, I think it's between, F and G or something on
Mhm.
East Second Street. No black walnut and it just. It grows into
Oh,
the
it's
power
the
lines.
one that goes, yeah.
Kinda. Pretty gnarly looking and
Mhm.
they've gotta have to trim that thing every couple of years for no particular reason.
Right.
Where is it again?
It's on East. Second Street, I think, I think it's between F and G. On the east side of the street.
Okay, I'll go look, because I was contacted about.
Can't miss it if there's a fence and it's the only tree with like within a block side.
Okay,
It's in the power lines.
They're contracted with Pacific Power. He has the Pacific Power
Yeah, I
magnet
just wanted to.
truck too.
How much information he gave you if he mentioned that tree, because I've been walking
Yes.
by it for years and it needs to go, I think.
he is not, he was only talking to us about trees that, like, it's our city park, so he was like, hey. He contacted us about our trees,
Sure.
other trees that. Are potentially on other private citizens' property. He did not ask me about, but I'm gonna contact him about this, so I can certainly ask him about that tree.
Pretty close to being the city street right away.
Okay, I'll take a look at it and I'll ask him about it.
They're usually pretty happy to remove a tree. I've talked
Right.
a few times and they're excited about it.
Not my trees, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think some trees.
Are they?
I tried to get them taken out, but they're like, no, sorry.
Not in our power lines, they seem like we should follow.
They are in their power line,
Oh, and they still want it?
but they just cut right around them. So there's,
Oh, wow.
it's fine.
Okay, so next council report item is elections. Council seats are coming to end of term for three of our councilors in our mayor position. I have actually, printed out election packet materials. It's not the full packet, it's the letter that goes out to people. If anybody who's, seat is coming to term in December would like to talk more about that, I would welcome that. And you also got a letter tonight. So there are a couple ways that people can file. One is by petition. That one is a little more involved. It requires collection of signatures, getting your signatures sheet approved by the city prior to collection of signatures, and finally a couple other forms. The deadline is also a bit sooner at August 14th because Lynn County actually has to verify signatures. The second option is to file by declaration, which is a $10 fee. That deadline is the 27th of August. And that one you just turn into
How many signatures?
signatures, in the letter, it's,
10, I believe.
yes, and you're encouraged to get some more. Because when they go to verify them, just in case there's like a buffer, if they can't verify any of them for some reason. Yeah. And if you want those forms, I can also provide those.
I don't know when my turn is.
Delegations for
In
future
January.
meetings, we have folks lined up for our next two meetings, that are gonna come and present. We have Josh from Sweet Home Sanitation, who will be joining us in August. We also have Sean Tate from SMAC, our Small Municipalities Advocacy Coalition, who it says TBD, date to be determined, but we have them lined up for August as well. I believe the topics of those will be, Josh wanting to talk about how we do cleanup days, sort of report on how our last cleanup day went, and discuss with council moving forward cleanup days. And then for SMAC, I think that it's just a good touch point. We signed up to be a part of that coalition, I think almost a year ago. And so it's good to hear from him again. I get to hear from him, but council doesn't.
He's a lobbyist, right?
He is our lobbyist, yeah.
Okay.
What I will say is that, what we have coming up next is that he has coordinated a meeting with DEQ. It is the first step towards, us working on discussing the way that they do certification for water treatment. There's no certification specific to lagoons, and that creates a barrier for small towns like us to have certified people.
Right.
And so we've been working to get a commission hearing about development of a lagoon operators certificate. So we are essentially counting people out who don't have the opportunity to get the hours and the experience and the systems are more water treatment plants like you see in bigger cities. They don't get the opportunity to actually get that experience before testing, but they still have to test for those systems, and it does create a barrier. So on August 8th, we have a meeting with DEQ to discuss their current practices, and that is a precursor to this ultimately what we hope to do, which is the hearing. So he explains it better, to be totally honest,
Yeah.
but and that's just one thing that we're working on, and he'll have some other updates as well. And then lastly, we have like a last vote from OCOG, Oregon Cascades West Council of Governments, and they also partner with communities like ours. We do provide an array of services, and so he's just gonna also come and present sort of update you all on kind of the services that we could potentially tap into. LOC conference is coming up. I have applied for a scholarship. It is very expensive. It's in Bench this year from October 17th to 19th. At this point, I just wanted to gauge interest. If you are interested, I would like to know by the end of July. You can give me a text or an email. That's not to say that I can guarantee everybody gets to go. If we have a lot of people interested, we simply can't afford it. I'm hoping to get a scholarship because then we can fund more. But we will cross that bridge when we get to it. Let's gauge interest and then we'll discuss what makes sense in terms of like who to send, how do we maximize this, who's never been before, things like that. And then we have other things. I have connected with people from other cities to get more guidance on how we do nuisance abatement. That's kind of the thing that I've been talking about, getting more capacity in-house to do. We have on the route of citations and law enforcement, but if we actually have to go in and remove a nuisance on behalf of the property owner because they are not meeting us on compliance, right? We're citing them, we're not getting anywhere. I learned more about how we are required to document those things for things like lien searches. And then also got some shared resources like Excel tables that they use for tracking. And they're gonna share some vendors with us for things like specifically when we have landscaping issues. We still need to consider how to line up a list of like trusted other vendors to use if we ever have like a junkyard situation or somebody that has like a lot of actual garbage. Those will be sort of different situations that we would have to take on as they come. And so for sure, we're getting some contacts on how we would do like somebody who's got batteries growing on the top of their house or things like that. And we're starting to get that dialed in so we can implement that. We want to use it sparingly because, you know, we have to use city funds to pay for that service and then try to collect on them. And so it will only be for like kind of our worst case scenarios. And then this week I've connected with the city administrator from Tangent when I went to the Mount Hood conference. And he talked about how Tangent has really grown their community engagement. They've had a lot of city or community interest
Right.
to make that happen. Those things don't happen just because the city, like small cities don't usually have the staffing to just like run all these events, right?
Right.
They're usually driven by community interest, but they have a community group that has grown recently and sort of like revived itself, and they've done a show and shine, and they've started Garage Sale Week, and they've pulled off some events, they've done a harvest festival, and so he connected me with the person who leads their committee, and they are having a meeting this Thursday, and they invited me to come. So at this point, obviously, that's what's happening in another small town who has had some success, and so I'm making connections to try to get some insights on like how they sort of built that momentum and see if we can try to replicate it.
I followed,
That's Thursday night in Tangent,
I followed their Facebook group, the,
Tangent Together.
yes, it's pretty cool, the stuff that they've done.
And so it's at 6:30 in Tangent, and if anybody wants to join me, absolutely.
Who leads the group?
Oh my gosh. I have to.
Tangent Together, I think it's.
Tangent Together, I have to find they've emailed me, we connected, I'll find it, I'll let you know. So I'm going, and I think that will be a good sort of kick off to try to build some momentum for some of our goals about getting some more community events happening in Halsey. That was it. I always think it's gonna be a short report, not a short report.
So, next item is the Public Works with Andy. Are you there, Andy?
There we go. Can you hear me?
There we go.
Oh, perfect. So here's my report for June. We had a water leak on East Second Street and A Street. We had a 2-inch water line that we had to replace a section of pipe to do the repair. At the water plant, we successfully installed a new distribution pump at the water treatment plant. And while we were firing that up to get things running, our variable frequency drive, it failed, and it burnt up. So we had one on the shelf. We're able to have the electrician install it. I had to run to Eugene and pick up a programmer for it. And once they installed that, we were able to be back in business. On the 600 block of West 2nd, we had a gentleman that was wanting to put a fence up. We looked on our maps, and it was showing that we had a 6-inch clean out in the area. So before he built his fence, we thought we better investigate and find out where that's at. And we did find it. The clean out was found. There was a root ball in there. We extracted that. It was repaired, and all the repairs were brought up to grade, and we have a new access cap. If we ever needed to get into that clean out. On A Street, we had a contractor come in there and install a new sewer lateral. We looked in the manhole. We seen excessive water coming out. We investigated. We had a camera come in, and the contractor had drilled through both sides of the pipe. And so since then, we have had the contractor, the owner of the business, of the home, they came in and had a contractor in and come and repair it. And we did the investigation on that, did the inspection on that. So this normally would be in next month's report, but as everybody knows, we had that major water leak on the 100 block of West Second Street that we had residents out of water. We had a contractor come in and assist with our efforts. That would be on, I was 11th on a Wednesday. We worked late and was able to get the repair done on Thursday, the 11th. So that was a big undertaking for the Public Works. Everybody involved, Brianna and City Hall was involved with the big effort. So normally that would be in next month's report, but I thought it was big enough that it was a big effect here in Halsey, and I've never been experienced with something like that since I've been here. So does anybody have any questions with my report?
Well, not so much a question, but I've had several community members tell me to say thank you for your quick and hard work on getting that corrected.
Appreciate that. We did work. We did work. The first night was 10:30. We got home. The second night we got home at 9:30 and started at 7.
Jeez. Wow. Well,
So-
thank you for staying on top of it and staying with it.
Yeah, it's important to try to keep our community with water. That's one of the things that we do is supply water. You know, they want to flush the toilet. They want to be able to have water. So
Yeah.
this is an unfortunate situation where, you know, we had to dig up where ODOT has already been there but the success story of it is that we were able to repair the leak, get people back with water.
Thank you.
I just want to take a minute again to thank our guys. They worked incredibly hard. I mean, I was out there looking at the hole, trying to stay out of the way, and they just looked exhausted and they just never stopped. It was a incredibly challenging and complex repair, and I just felt like they did everything they could to get the city back with water, to get all of our residents back with water as quickly as possible. I think that their hard work was very admirable. I also, for the record, would like to thank council. We had a lot of council engagement throughout this process. We had counselors that asked if they could help, and there was like a point where we had enough help. So we're like, thank you for offering. We don't need any more help. But we will keep you in mind. We will call you. We had counselors who delivered water to people's houses. And so I think that it was a really, really good show of effort on behalf of our city, on behalf of our council to take care of our people. And I think everybody deserves a bit of credit for that. And again, on the record, we had our team here who were flexible, who, you know, sat in City Hall extra hours and delivered, you know, made sure that people had water. And Larissa was providing updates. I was texting her at 9, 10 o'clock at night so that she could update our websites and our Facebook and everything like that. And she,
That's what I was gonna say there.
Yeah.
It was, the communication was great. I feel like part of that started with you in reaching out. I mean, that was welcome, you know, from my perspective, as a council member. And it made us feel, you know, like we were all part of the team.
Yeah.
And
definitely were.
Andy, definitely appreciate you guys' effort. You know, drove by several times and you guys were always out there and I felt real bad for you.
He's had a guy the last night go by on a motorcycle and cheer. Yeah.
That's fair.
So, yeah, I think that our guys deserve a ton of, thanks and credit for their work, but also I didn't want to have the opportunity to credit the work of everybody in a tough situation. That's all.
Thank you much, Andy.
Take care. Thank you.
And next up is the library report with Abby.
Hello,
Hello there.
So June was kind of a fun month. We had the barbecue at the library on the 22nd, which went pretty well. We got the Central Cascades Wilderness Permit Pass program up and going, and the seed library has been expanded and so far has been pretty popular. We had 185 visitors for an average of over 10 per day. This does include 2 days when we were closed, when we normally would have been opened, but it also includes the barbecue event. We had 186 books checked out and 6 new library cards were issued and 9 books were added to the collection. The lending library and the new technology should be up and available pretty soon. I've placed the order for the launch pads, the tablets we're gonna get. I'm not sure how long those take, but that order is at least in process. I'm still reviewing some options for laptops before I buy anything, to see if our vendors that we already use have any good options. But other than that, the automatic door was supposed to be installed on the 8th. And then it was supposed to be installed yesterday, and unfortunately, it hasn't happened yet. I guess there's been delays in them having doors delivered to Left Coast Door, but that should, for real this time, be done by the end of July. And other than that, the only real exciting thing to mention is summer reading program. We had our first event of the program this last Saturday, and that was a good turnout. Everybody got to meet Caesar, the no drama llama, and as always, he was a hit. And yeah, that's kind of all the exciting stuff. Yeah, I'm just hoping that we'll get the door, the technology, and everything from the lending library up and actually be available in August by the latest. But yeah, that's kind of everything for updates.
So how's the seed library? Have there been a lot of people picking seeds up?
Oh yeah, we got a bunch of flowers and people are taking those a lot. Those have been really popular. I've had a couple people take just like a bunch, but mostly a couple. A bunch of people will take just 1 or 2, but yeah, that's been pretty
Awesome.
popular. And there has been a lot of interest in the lending library items, so I'm hopeful those will be circulated too. But yeah. Any other questions, anybody?
Abby, I'd like to suggest that next year, if we do the barbecue with Barcom, I think you may have gotten more participation, but you did it on the weekend of the Brownsville citywide garage sale.
Yeah,
Might
that
be a little bit of competition there. I mean, I'll go a long ways for a hot dog, but
yeah, they offered the day of when they were available and when they could get everyone here, and I was on the lookout for other events happening that day, but it seems to me that Brownsville doesn't update their website a lot. I didn't see anything about it on their website, so I missed that. But yeah, it was
It's
still
an inaugural event of the
I
district.
missed it too, so.
Yeah.
The Brownsville,
I was there.
It's the Pioneer Picnic.
oh, the
Pioneer
Pioneer Picnic,
Picnic,
I say,
okay.
the citywide sales
Like,
are
oh,
this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember there was something really big going on that weekend.
Well, the Pioneer Picnic's every year at the same time, so.
Yeah.
Weird, no, this usually falls on Father's Day, so that totally threw me off this year.
With the long.
I don't know.
That makes sense.
You know that.
I will say that we
Quite a
think
bit.
that that's kind of a good inertia event.
Right.
That we talked about doing one more big, like summer kickoff event that's citywide. And so kind of trying to take that and expand it to more than just a library event and making it more like the Halsey block party at the park.
Right.
Having a library booth, bubble gums, things, you know, like the.
Sure.
Things like that, and Barcom is interested in continuing to partner with us on events. So Eric and I talked about that a little bit. When we were there and the mayor, yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll start on council reports and start off with my report. June was a very busy month. Had the bond committee meeting. There was a lot of good discussion on what buildings are gonna have what, some planning, things that the engineers have come up with. Trying to narrow down what actually needs to be removed, moved around, where classes are gonna be, et cetera. It's been an ongoing process, but their planning process is actually pretty impressive. Went to the Sharing Hands open house for their new facility. It's pretty darn impressive. If you get a chance to stop in there, you should check it out. Brianna had a meeting with Sean Tate from our SMAC group, and that was pretty informative, especially with the lagoon system information that we received. And then had a veterans committee meeting in Salem on 2 separate days. Talking about veterans issues that the state are looking at, and some funds that came from the federal government that the state's going to distribute through the veterans organizations. And the second one was meeting with the Vets Committee and Emergency Preparedness Committee. And again, there's more funds coming from the feds going to the state that they're gonna try to get distributed to local communities. And then they're discussing upcoming veteran stand downs. Do you guys know what a veteran stand down is?
Nope.
That's when there's a date where veterans organizations come in, mental health organizations come in, dental organizations come in, and they do assistance with people that are in rural communities that are either in rural communities, homeless, or whatever, and they try to get as many people put in touch with whatever resources they particularly need. There's going to be a bunch this year, and I'm gonna be taking part in at least one of them. And then we had the legal library barbecue, and we got to tour the Barcom buildings, which was pretty interesting. More to come on that, I think, down the road. And then yeah, I think that's about it. So. Questions, comments, concerns?
Are you talking about having maybe something like that veteran stand down in Halsey or?
They're going right now, they generally do them in like Corvallis, Albany, Eugene, Springfield. And when I talked to them, I said, well, there's really not much for the rural areas, and they'd have to have a place to do it, so. They're trying to find where there's the most veterans population. And they have to go through the Veterans Administration for that.
Yeah.
And then they'll revisit where it'll be. They had some communications with Junction City wanting to do one, but again, that's one of the Veterans Committee at the state that they kicked the can down the road for a bit, so. Would you guys be averse to having a stand down in Halsey? I mean, it's not something that's gonna take a lot of staff time, maybe some advertisement, that's about it, so. If you're okay with it, I'll put our name up in the hat and see what they get.
Sure.
Sure, we can get some volunteers to help.
Probably, but it really depends on, it's gonna be their ballgame.
Hmm.
And so it'd most likely be. I think probably the only place I can think of where you could have it would be at the park.
Okay, yeah.
That'd be really the only large place.
The community center wouldn't be.
They, you know, for some things, they might be able to have it here, so I don't know what their requirements are for a site, so. I'll throw our hat in the ring and see what they need. But that's that. And next is Michelle and the Central Lynn School District report.
And I did not attend the June meeting and they don't have a meeting in July. So I don't have a report.
We have one in.
Yeah. It's the 1 month of the year that they take off, so,
That was quick.
yeah.
No new business. And so that leaves us to the old business of the special livestock permit. Council has asked to consider approval of the amended draft special livestock permit. Brianna, do you wanna?
Yes, and so we drafted a livestock permit in alignment with the work session goals and the first read of the ordinance, changes for livestock and poultry. This has since been updated, after council's discussion last month and decisions to move back to an educational purposes only. Notable changes to this are really about like, the only change we really had to do was instead of, for this page, the very last page, it said 4-H and FFA applicants only. And now it doesn't say only because it is only for them. And so that's where we would get group leader information and participant information. And other changes are little small changes that were recommended, to some of the language by, Ross in the initial read that didn't change the context. So like a covered and self-contained receptacle, or what was it? Animal feed must be stored in a rodent-proof container. It said metal or rodent-proof, so like those kinds of changes. And so he said, don't use metal, and so we took it out. So I made those changes in this version. The other change is that you will see in the checklist, the requirements checklist, that it says, pass administrative review for commercial zone only. We don't have to approve this right now. We can kind of review this and review the ordinance and then sort of backtrack because they kind of talk to each other, right? But administrative review sounds very vague. And so it doesn't necessarily belong, this description doesn't necessarily belong in the ordinance, but I do think it's important that we are transparent about what an administrative review is. And so if we choose to keep, if council chooses to keep that component in the updated ordinance, what that means is that we're gonna determine if there's food service, food processing, or medical facilities on an adjacent property. And what that might mean is that, obviously, there's still the component where an adjacent property can say like, I don't really want livestock next to me. That doesn't go away, but if we as a city want to make sure that restaurants can exist and these other things can exist, it might mean that like, depending on what kind of activity is happening there, you might have different setback requirements. So our current setback requirements are distance from buildings, that you're allowed to have within our property line. So administrative review might say, hey, you also need to make sure that you keep the pen 10 feet off that fence line. Things like that. It doesn't mean that we don't want people to have the opportunity. It just means that it gives us the opportunity to have some discretion if commercial activity is taking place on a neighboring property. To say like, hey, this is an urgent care, if we get an urgent care, maybe we need to make sure that we don't have a fence line shared.
Sure.
With animals. So that is my note. That was a way that I wanted to try to address this issue of the we do have residences that exist in a commercial zone. And we, in the past, have always sort of defaulted to this application of residential ordinance on houses, but I had received feedback that that's not always the case. And so I was trying to find a path forward that isn't just a blanket statement, because sometimes it actually won't be a good fit to say like, all of these rules apply equally, depending on the commercial activity. But it doesn't mean it's a no.
Sure.
I would recommend that we read the ordinance. I would like to hear feedback from council on how they feel about the ordinance, how they feel about these components. Another thing that I wanted to put out there is that if we like the idea of having discretion, but we don't like the idea of administrative review, we can't say council review, and then it's, everybody gets to look and decide, and it's not just on happening in office. The problem, I don't wanna say it's a problem. The difference with council review is the timeline. So if somebody submits an application on the Wednesday right following a council meeting, they might not be heard for a month. And administrative review allows that to be processed a lot more quickly. I don't have a preference either way. I obviously care what council's preference are. Yes.
I think probably for efficiency and speed, administrative review by the city staff would be probably most
Right,
applicable.
true.
Yeah, I mean, I wanna take any sort of like. I would like to be really transparent with the things that we're looking for, and what might be required. I don't want it to be something that's like, oh, so administrative review, what does that mean? But I am a little bit hesitant to just blanketly say that we will always allow
Sure.
livestock on residences and commercial zones. Just depending on what the situation is.
So this is just a consensus item. What do you guys think of this permit application?
I think it's good.
No.
Good, good changes.
Bless you. Thank you.
Yeah, I do like the addition of the reasoning behind the administrative review. It seems like there should be some guidance out there from like Oregon Health Authority or someone also, but I haven't looked at that.
I really tried and I called Ross about it. I called all of our county environmental health, I called Oregon Health Authority. It's very hard to get information about this very niche topic. It's surprisingly not that common. So I needed to just use my discretion to find a path forward for Halsey. It allows us to do this kind of unique thing with some discretion. And again, the outcome isn't necessarily that we will say like, no, you can't have livestock. But just to be more considerate about like, what if we do have this Mexican restaurant open up and then they want patio seating on the back and then their neighboring residential property decides that they want to put their pin right along the fence line, you know, it's just something that we need to be able to have some discussion about.
Yeah. I agree, but I think having, some examples of the reasons, like you did in here, is a really good idea. Cause just like you said, leaving it open to administrative review, the city doesn't want it, so.
Yeah, I also don't want to place the city in a position where it seems like we are applying favoritism.
Mhm.
And so I felt like trying to find a way for more transparency about what is being reviewed. It needs to be said somewhere and it needs to be stamped approved. If it's not being hidden, it's nice.
Yeah, I like what you did in there. For the permit.
So consensus to approve as recommended.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. There we go. So next item is the
Ordinance. Ordinance.
what is this resolutions?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That word.
That one, yeah.
Mhm.
So it's ordinance 2024-447. Ordinance amending Halsey Municipal Code to add provisions on lambs and goat kids, amending chapter 10.10 livestock and poultry. Discussion, comment, concerns?
Does today count as the second read then?
Today counts as the second read. This one doesn't have the updated date of the 16th day of July. If we can get so I'll make sure that the signed version does have it. The main changes in this one are, that livestock on residential property located in central zone shall require an administrative review. And then, we've added a definition for youth educational program. And then we also added that, requirement for education, for participation in an educational program. In order to be registered. Yes, we did, 5A. I'm like, I swear that was one of the main things. Where is it? So the lands and benefits are being kept solely for the purpose of youth educational programs such as 4-H or FFA livestock project.
So with that, I would entertain a motion.
I move the governing body of the city of Halsey adopt ordinance 2024-447 and ordinance amending the Halsey Municipal Code 10.10 livestock and.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And with that, we move into city administrative evaluations. We have an executive session as pursuant to Oregon Revised Statute 192.660 I. Discuss annual evaluation, in this case, mid-year. The state administrator, all discussions are confidential and those present may disclose nothing from this session. Representatives of the news media are allowed to attend executive sessions as provided by Oregon Revised Statute 192.660, but must not disclose any information discussed.